first episode of Get Real with Ralph. I've been very excited about doing this. We are actually excited to bring you several guests today with different points of view on different things. I decided after watching a lot of great shows on the internet, inspired by a lot of people, that Southeastern Wisconsin could use something that has a little bit of excitement where we talk about the issues of the day, not just on a global level, but on a local level as well, because you're not going to get that when you're watching some of these bigger shows on the internet. And hey, I hope it goes well. But in the meantime, I just want to have a lot of fun with great people and share that out there with everybody in Southeastern Wisconsin and anybody anywhere else that's watching and interested in what's going on in our corner of the world. So today I have with me my very first three guests. I want to introduce them to you. This is Dave Mariani. He is with a company called Most Performance, and he's going to be talking a little bit about can your kids make it on social media? Do you have a child that wants to be a YouTuber? We're going to talk about that. We have Kathleen May with us today from MP Consulting. That is a quality consultant firm for the cannabis industry. And we have with a old personal friend, Mr. Patrick E. Moran, former retired teacher, former mayor, former salesperson, former entrepreneur, author, and a man with an opinion on just about everything. Like or hate the opinion, always love the man. So let's get started. Where do we want to go? I wish we could play like a little spin the bottle here and somebody goes for, yeah, I'm going to spin the pen here. All right, we're going to talk about cannabis first. All right, we just happen to have two people that have become experts on both the subjects of medical marijuana, the legalization of such, and I believe recreational as well. And there's been a lot going on in the news and in Wisconsin, and a lot of movement, a lot of referendums this last time around. Kathleen, what do you think is happening here under the earth with the people of Wisconsin, and how do you think this is going to shake out?
Okay, well, I mean, first off, the hemp program in Wisconsin became legal back in November of 2017. They rolled out the rules in March of 2018. The state only had about 90 days to put those rules together. So there wasn't a whole lot of guidance for cultivators and processors in the state to really understand what that all meant. But in any case, there was about 350 licenses given out. 290, I think, were cultivation, and the rest were processing. So we have a legal hemp program here in Wisconsin, but there's still a lot of misconceptions with that program and
Sure.
what that really means. So we are technically legal, but there are hemp from a federal perspective is still illegal.
Even hemp without THC?
Yes, because hemp is cannabis. Cannabis is both hemp and marijuana.
Okay.
The difference between them.
And the law doesn't specify between the two?
No.
Okay. So you can get in trouble for growing non-THC hemp in Wisconsin if you're not careful and you don't know what you're doing.
Right. So the only requirement right now under the hemp program as far as testing is to make sure that it's under that legal limit, which is an arbitrary 0.3% THC.
Sure.
Now, with the passing of the 2018 Farm Bill, that may detach hemp from the Controlled Substance Act, which then hemp becomes just another agricultural product, just as corn, wheat, whatever.
Sure.
But we're not there yet. So those that are in the business right now, they need to be very careful that, their products because the majority of people are processing hemp into making CBD oil. I'm sure we've all heard what's CBD. But if you
CBD oil is extracted from hemp that is non-THC to begin with, or do they remove the THC from marijuana?
So CBD is one of hundreds of what they're called cannabinoids in cannabis. CBD and THC are the two most common. CBD is non-psychoactive, THC is the psychoactive. Okay. So again, there's that misconception that because CBD
Who wouldn't want the psychoactive part?
Well, some ailments do better with CBD as opposed to THC.
I'm sure.
Some do better with a combination of the two.
Sure.
So again, there's that misconception that because it's CBD and it's non-psychoactive that it's legal, and it's not. Because you can get CBD from both hemp and marijuana.
So if it comes from hemp, it's legal. If it comes from marijuana, it's not?
again, you fall in that gray area because technically hemp is still illegal from a federal perspective.
So if you bring CBD oil into Wisconsin from another state, does it matter which type of CBD oil it is, or are you bringing illegal substance because there's no THC?
You're technically violating the Controlled Substance Act.
Wow. Wow. Pat, what do you think is going to happen with that, both nationally and locally? Do you think that the prevailing attitude among most people is that this is a bunch of bullshit and they should start fixing it?
Well, I think that being a baby boomer,
sure,
and having my introduction to marijuana in Vietnam,
mm-hmm.
I think it's inevitable.
Probably a good place to be introduced to it.
Oh, well, sometimes it was a benefit and not a hazard, let me tell you.
I imagine.
I think that it's inevitable that it will be legalized eventually, maybe not in my lifetime. There are 3 examples that I could cite where I see positives. I taught with a colleague whose daughter had some violent seizures, and they just passed a couple of years ago in Wisconsin legislation where you can get the medical marijuana to treat the seizures, which is a positive thing because no other ethical drug would help with this poor little girl's seizures. My mother has glaucoma, and it's progressing. And again, here with the medical marijuana, it could be an aid in helping the progression of this disease.
Sure.
And the third thing, which is near and dear to my heart, in addition to my mother's condition, obviously, is the treating of post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injuries. Now, they give you psychotropic drugs and they dumb you down. My son suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder,
sure,
TBI. And now they're experimenting with the medical marijuana, which would be, in my view, better than drugging guys down and doping them out
sure.
with the psychotropic drugs.
Do you think that the increase in THC in this country as a whole is going to have a net result of more, or do you think it's going to have a net effect of less use of opioids?
I would say less.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, I'm not sure. People with addictive personalities, I don't care if it's alcohol, opioids, and one of the big concerns of law enforcement, and I can appreciate their point of view here, is the progression. I'm not suggesting that there's progression from pot to heroin to other types of opioids, but in my view, if you have an addictive personality, there's a propensity to have this overlap, and I think there is a connection there, a nexus there.
Well, I think this is where education is vital when you're talking about medical cannabis in particular, because most people, when you start talking about THC, they immediately think that, you get high. You can regulate your dose of THC to basically be like
sure.
taking an aspirin.
Right.
The other thing is, which most people don't understand, and again, my background is science. This is part of the reason why I wanted to get into this industry, because there's so much science behind this plant that people don't understand. When I talk about education with regards to the use of opioids, the reason that there should be a push to move to cannabis as opposed to opioids is that physiologically we do not have receptors in our body that cannabis attaches to, that opioids do,
mm-hmm.
that cause us to stop breathing when we take too much of the product.
Sure.
So you will never OD on cannabis.
Right.
You might be in a coma for a few days if you take a lot of it, but our body is not.
Don't eat the whole pan of brownies,
exactly,
okay?
Exactly.
In fact, don't even eat a whole brownie. Don't ask me how I know this, but I know somebody who ate a whole brownie in Jamaica, and it turned out that after the fact, when I asked about why there was such a reaction, the gentleman said that they should have had a half of a half and wait a couple of hours. So for those of you that want to experiment, don't try this at home until you know what you're doing.
The rule of thumb is, start low, go slow. It's especially with edibles is I would heed that advice.
Yeah, whether it be for medical reasons or for the people out there in Colorado and California watching us.
And what's indicative of what you just said is I've never seen a violent pot smoker, but I've seen a lot of violent drunks.
Sure.
And when I broke my pelvis, I fell off a ladder up in the Upper Peninsula painting my house and my ribs. They put me on opioids. And
sure.
I became terribly constipated. And
yeah.
I said, I can't take these things. It was convoluted in my system. So when I went down to the VA, because I'm in the VA system, and I asked the physician, I said, hey, doc, could you give me a marijuana patch for the pain for my pelvis?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, marijuana is not clinically tested. It's not legal. We don't give it in doses. I said, but yet you'll give me these opioids that are more destructive on my body and are causing me physical harm.
Yeah.
And that to me is hypocritical.
It is. I think there's a huge hypocrisy there. And I think I understand why. And it's because it doesn't really matter. And when it comes to, I'm politically agnostic. It's taken me years of my life to get there because I realize that honestly, the people who are powerful and have money are always going to protect that above all. That's always going to happen. It is the nature of man. It's been going on since the beginning of mankind. It is in our DNA. It is part of our survival. You can knock it and say they're evil. No, they're human beings. And that is human nature, that when you're powerful, you want to protect that power because that to you is your survival. That is your shield against anything else. And so but once you're aware of that, you realize everybody has an agenda, and that agenda isn't you. And it's not me, and it's not you. And everything that they're doing that is for your own good is never really for your own good. It's for the benefit of somebody making a profit.
You just gave the definition of social Darwinism.
Absolutely. And I believe in social Darwinism. I believe that the fall of man will become victims of our own success. I mean, you can't sustain a lifestyle where you have to do less and less and have more and more forever. And you're basically incentivizing people to be less innovative, less intelligent, less hardworking. You can't have a society that continues to do that and not have it end badly. And that's the human condition, that no matter what happens, if you wiped everybody out and started over again, it's going to keep happening because our intelligence allows us to do that. And so it's time that we're just, I think, self-aware and take a step back. And you go to the subject of, marijuana. Why? Marijuana can be grown by anybody, anywhere, anytime. There is no way for big tobacco pharmaceutical companies and everybody out there who makes money now to really regulate that. It's easier to grow than tobacco. It is easier to get. And if they make it legal, they can't control and keep a monopoly on that the way they can opiates, the way they can when they put a patent on something and for 10 years nobody else can make it. You can't patent weed. I mean, there's
people trying.
Of course, yeah. People will patent a strain or whatever it happens to be, but you can't patent weed as a whole.
I mean, and just to piggyback off of something he said, that that's always the argument, is that there's no data or research to support the medical use of cannabis, and that's completely false. There's over 25,000 articles on PubMed.org that you can go to and read about the science behind it. The other, and to piggyback off what you just said, is where I'm coming from, there needs to be some regulation with regards to this plant. It's a plant,
right?
And it's still a drug. And it's a drug that's being used for medicinal purposes.
Of course.
So you can legalize across the board, even for adult use, but if you don't have a program to manage how products are manufactured, you're technically still dealing with a black market kind of scenario, because and it's happening now, even in states that are legal. We're over 30 states legal in the United States. And there's still people doing things.
And I got a clear example of that. I'm a father of 6 kids. All right, 2 are adult teens now, and between my kids and all of their friends, I hear firsthand stories. And these kids will go and buy a vape pen, and they'll get what looks like CBD oil, but it's THC. They get caught in school. The schools aren't actually testing it. And it's not like they're taking a puff and they know the difference in taste. They're gonna, parents are gonna get called. They're gonna be like, "Do you want it or not?" If you don't take that pen as a parent, test it yourself. You have no idea what your kid is vaping. And here's the thing: your kid can get that easier than they can get alcohol. And the reason is, anybody who's selling alcohol has been licensed to do so and has too much to freaking lose by selling it to an underage kid. But some gas station owner on the corner who is handing out, who knows, made in somebody's basement oils from under a counter. All right. First of all, the product's not regulated. Second of all, he's not licensed to sell it, so he doesn't give a shit whether he's selling it to a 15-year-old or a 50-year-old. Because either way, he's going to jail if he gets caught. There's no difference in sentencing, really. And if it is, it's not very much. And it's such a small amount, he knows he's not going to get in that much trouble anyway. And so you got to worry about our kids getting poisoned, about adults getting poisoned. And if it was regulated, then these places would crack down on the places because the people with the licenses would demand it.
Look what's happening in California. That is a legal state.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at product recalls because they're testing.
Right.
They're failing.
Right.
So, I mean, and that's a legal state, legal for medicinal and adult use.
And it means the system is working, is catching stuff that on the streets not getting caught.
And if we fail to learn our history, we're doomed to repeat it. Prohibition.
Yeah.
And the quality of the alcohol they're making in the black market.
Absolutely.
The adverse, physical impacts that it had on people. So I don't know what it
is. We both come from immigrant families we have family, great grandparents that made moonshine or whatever.
My grandpa made wine in the basement. You would hide it out in the garage.
Yeah, they were the pot smokers of their day. They really were, and they were politicians and judges and policemen, and everybody from every cross section of life was quietly enjoying their beverage, their adult beverage. And the people that did it the most quietly and discreetly just went about their day, and they didn't really get messed with because society as a whole accepted that alcohol was part of everyday life, even though the law didn't. Mm-hmm. And I think we're there right now we're transitioning now from medical to recreational. I think, and talking about testing got us there, thank you. But I think we're there now with marijuana use. I don't see any difference as an adult man, parent, business owner, homeowner, taxpayer. I don't see any difference between you sitting in your home and having a couple of cocktails with friends or sitting in your home and passing a joint around. There isn't. None.
I mean, the only reason it's illegal is it's self-political. I mean, we can talk for hours on that.
Absolutely.
But that's the only reason that cannabis is the illegal substance for the Controlled Substance Act. It's all politically motivated.
Yeah, and that's my point. Everybody has an agenda. And what's going to happen, I'm afraid, is that when the demand gets so big that it can't be ignored, then all the big corporations are going to step into the legalization process and manipulate that process to basically keep it completely illegal for anybody. Like right now in Colorado, you can grow your own so many plants. I think that's all going to get friggin' wiped out. RJ Reynolds is going to be selling us poisonous marijuana by the time it's over with.
I don't.
I hope you're. I hope you are wrong. I think the faster we move to legalization, the less that's likely to happen.
Well, it's legalization and regulation. It can't be. It can't be one without the other.
There can't be one without the other. And here's the thing: we've got this stupid freaking treaty that NATO belongs to, and I think most of the United Nations that says that you're not going to manufacture Schedule 1 drugs. It's an anti-narcotics provision that basically, if you legalize in your country, you're in violation of that treaty. And that's what people don't realize. It's like the island nation of Jamaica. It has just decriminalized, but can't legalize. And this is a country that would benefit economically in so many ways because they understand the entire product, the paper, all the other products. They're clamoring for this worldwide prohibition, and so they don't have to worry about having sanctions against them, so that they can create an export product for the world, a quality product. Why are we stopping that?
Well, the thing on your RJ Reynolds, which I disagree with, today I turned on Fox Business News, and Philip Morris, they were talking about the possibility of investing in the industry in Canada, and there are other tobacco companies doing that. Why? Because of the profit motive. I was down in Florida a couple of years ago with a good friend of mine. I was in the Israeli army with him. And his broker called on a Monday and he said, Herb, I think you should take some of your dough, put it in venture capital and invest in the cannabis industry. He said, why should I do that? He said, well, the big boys are getting in. Now, 2 years ago, Microsoft bought a financial company called Kind, who owned computer software companies that do the software for the marijuana growers, medical marijuana growers, or recreational.
Yeah.
So if the profit and the motivation is there, it's going to happen. Not to poison people, not to squeeze people out, not to stop it, because the God almighty dollar is there. It's going to happen.
Sure.
It's going to be economically driven.
Well, for pharmaceutical companies are already involved. We already have synthetic drugs on the market. Marinol is one of them.
Sure.
And now the GW Pharmaceuticals in the UK just came out with Epidiolex. So, I mean, and this is part of the reason why we jumped into this industry. You know, back 5 years ago when we were looking to start our own consulting company, my business partner and I came across an article in American Pharmaceutical Review on microbiology testing of medical cannabis. So 5 years ago, probably 10 years ago, these conversations were already happening.
Mm-hmm.
People have been coming into the industry behind the scenes for years. So it's not like all of a sudden cannabis is this. I mean, it is a hot topic right now, and everybody's jumping in. People
Sure.
have been jumping in slowly.
Mhm.
It's just now that number is increasing, and there's more advocacy and there's
Well,
more
what's indicative of
science.
what you just said, there was a British pharmaceutical company that was approved by the FDA for a cannabis product that treats epilepsy and seizures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
GW Pharmaceuticals,
Right.
You treat athletes, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it'd be helpful for athletes when they have injuries? I mean, for some reason, it seems to be the thing that most jocks blaze up nowadays anyway. They when I was a kid, they all drank.
Yeah.
This generation of kids, these athletes all smoke pot. It's crazy, and they say that it's for pain. I've heard every excuse in the world. I think it's they're 16, to be honest. But after we get past that, they're 16, they want to get high part.
Yeah.
Do you see a benefit for your athletes?
I do. In the smoking, no. In the inhalation of any type of smoke or vapor, no.
Okay.
A topical or something you ingest, yes, there's the potential for that, especially in the CBD, and that's what I'm most interested in is the CBD. And it's interesting the research that I've done on it. 20, 30 years ago, the CBD used to be higher and the THC used to be lower in the plant, and now they've bred these plants in a way now where the THC is super high and you're losing the CBD. Which goes against kind of what I would use for my athletes, especially my football athletes that have head injuries that are on opioids already. Transition them away would be something with more of a CBD. And I've seen it. You can actually get it at Fresh Time, which is up the street here. You can get CBD at Fresh Time. You have to ask for it. You have to go get it out of a lock in a safe. But you're spending a lot and getting a little. So I think it's like I would, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think 1,000 milligrams for like. Maybe it's only 100 milligrams for like $60, which as far as dosage isn't a lot. So you're getting kind of you're not. It's not economical right now as far as what the consumer needs, because some people need a higher dosage of CBD.
Sure. And CBD counteracts psychoactive components of THC to a point. So people that want it for the high want the lowest CBD level possible, correct?
Well, the reason CBD is great for like athletes that are in contact sports, it's a neuroprotectant. And I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but the United States owns a patent on cannabinoids dealing with the neuroprotectant properties.
Who owns a patent?
The U.S. government.
Wow.
Yeah, so look into that when you all leave here today. So there's already research out there.
So does that mean that they license that patent out and collect a tax on anybody who wants to use their patent?
No, it just means that they're holding that, I don't want to say hostage, but technically they are keeping that information.
That's pretty cool when the game's ready, you write your own patents. I didn't know that the government could patent its own stuff.
It's been around, that patent's been around for quite some time, so.
But the point you make on ingesting, I agree with you. I think Northwestern University conducted a study about the smoke and the adverse impacts. Like when you smoke a cigarette, you're addicted to the nicotine, but it's the burning of the tobacco and the tars that create the
carcinogens, right.
And for an athlete, the ingestive types and the products that you have.
But long-term ingestion gets filtered through the liver, like alcohol,
and you would have an adverse
where inhaling does not.
Yeah.
And so I think that either way you're picking your poison to a point.
And again,
would you say is your long-term use, where they know about the liver?
Well, I mean, the other thing is for vaping, for example, you just need to make sure that you know what your vape oil is being cut with. I mean, if it's being cut with propylene glycol, you're going to get popcorn lungs. So we as consumers need to be very educated on what products.
And again, legalization would help that so much.
There's very safe vapes out there. I mean, there's medical marijuana companies or medical cannabis companies that are manufacturing and selling to medical patients. I mean, they're certainly not going to take the risk to give a immunosuppressed cancer patient
Right.
a product that is essentially going to kill them. There's been instances in California again where, you know, a cancer patient went and purchased their product from a dispensary that was full of mold, and they died not because of their cancer, but because of the contamination of their product. So we as consumers just have to be very educated on what we're purchasing. So there are safe ways to smoke.
Are there links? Do you have access? Do you have a website that has a link to where people can find more resources on that?
I can certainly put stuff up on my website, yeah.
Okay,
sure.
I'm going to put a link up to your website on this video and on my channel, so that you know, if you're looking, if that's what you're doing and you want to find a safe alternative, you can probably just tell people what states it's legal in and where to get it and who's making the safe products. Correct?
Yes.
I think that's helpful information for people. Now let's move on to something a little more fun.
I know we can talk about.
I know we could talk about forever. So, well, let's talk about something not fun. Let's talk about something cultural first. I got this article here. I'm gonna just read a few excerpts from it because it blew me away when I read it. And who's a fan of Christmas? I love Christmas. You like Christmas? See, got my funny Christmas sweater on. But anyway, Baby It's Cold Outside, seen as sexist. This is on NPR, frozen out by radio stations. The Me Too era come Yuletide season. Radio stations are pulling the plug on holiday earworm with lyrics that, to some, ring date rape warning bells rather than evoking innocent snowbound flirtation. The tune Baby It's Cold Outside, with words that seemed charming when FDR was in office, may land with a tone-deaf thud on the ear of today's listener. I'm not going to go through the whole rest of it, but basically the reason that I think first a station in Ohio and then one in California, now a couple in Canada, have said that it sounds an awful lot like date rape. She asks, what's in this drink? And clearly she's telling him no, and he's not taking no for an answer, and we're not going to participate in this. And the first thing that came to my mind is, how many of these people who are revolting this read 50 Shades of Grey? Right?
Well, you got a good point there.
You know, I see hypocrisy, or either that or people are so sensitive that they're reading into things.
So why is it a First Amendment right, and music and poetry and writings a reflection of the culture, obviously, if you're talking about your existence in the hood in Chicago and Inglewood, and you're rapping and you're dropping the F-bomb and you're talking about drugs or rape or whatever the case might be.
Right.
But that's a First Amendment freedom to express that. It's a generational thing.
Sure.
Now back pre-war, World War II and after the war, Baby It's Cold Outside is another reflection of a First Amendment freedom that should be perfectly okay to reflect under your constitutional rights and liberties. I mean, the political correctness has gone so amok. Selectively.
Sure, selectively.
Yeah.
And I say selectively because I think every, you know, and again, I'm not going to name names, parties, whatever. Everybody's got some agenda somewhere. And sometimes it takes a while to figure out. You got to follow the money. And I don't know where the money leads on this, but there's got to be money somewhere because there always is. What do you think?
I mean, obviously, being a woman and giving a perspective.
And I feel, please don't feel like here,
no.
like three lumbering. I feel like I got to back up here before I
can handle myself.
I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about getting like disgraced by the Me Too movement because we ganged up on you or something here.
No, I mean, from my perspective in this particular situation, I mean, I think that our society has become way oversensitive, and I actually feel for men in the society.
Well, sure, you have a son.
Well, there's always this like fear of, am I going to say the wrong thing? Is she going to be offended? And I'm not an easily offended person, so most thing rolls off of me. And if I don't like what you say, I'm going to tell you that. So,
yeah.
But I think, I mean, in this situation in particular, I mean, this is taking it to the extreme, in my opinion.
Yeah.
No, in no way am I disregarding the Me Too movement or anything. I support that, but this is, if you don't like the song and you're offended by it, turn it off. Don't listen to it.
Yeah, there you go.
So.
What do you think? Yes or no? Baby It's Cold Outside.
I don't know the song completely. I remember some of the lyrics, so I'm trying to go in my head and go back. And I know everybody has a different version. Somebody has
let's hear it.
version of it.
Well, let's check it out. Let's find it. let's let the song speak for yourself.
I try to keep opinions limited unless I know exactly what's going on.
Now, for all of you at home, we can't actually play the segment for you because we don't want to violate copyright. So you're just a little skipping around, and then we'll see what everybody thinks afterwards. It goes on and on and on and on. So that's you get it. You get the gist.
Classic chase.
Classic chase. Now, I read up on this yesterday because I knew so I have unfair advantage over you guys. So don't feel like an ambush. But the composer's daughter, first of all, she blamed Bill Cosby for this. Okay. Which I kind of chuckled. Hey, it's all your fault. But she said that her father wrote it as a jingle for him and her mother to sing together at cocktail parties. He was a Broadway composer. The second part of that is I actually think this was a song of rebellion of its generation. This was the Smells Like Teen Spirit of its generation. Because back then it was not proper for a girl to be alone with a boy in a room with nobody else there, even at 22 if she was unmarried. That was the culture of the day. And if a girl was going to have some shenanigans with a boy she wasn't married to, she better at least put up a front that she was very hard to get and all of that. So if you didn't play hard to get, you're going to be slut-shamed in that day and era. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So
you still are.
You still are, but no, it's better. I mean, Owen to just come right out now and say I'm horny and I'm looking for a guy. And yes, old people have a problem with it, but their own peers won't think that's disgusting anymore. You know, it's no more disgusting than a guy saying it. And if you find it revolting for a guy, you find it just revolting for a woman. You know, if you're a person of tighter morals and faith. But in general, I don't think there's as big of a discrepancy among our peers and younger about behavior. I could be wrong. I mean, there are some guys that are just egotistical assholes who think that there's a different set of standards, but I think the majority of people don't feel that way. But in that point, in that day and age, you had to play hard to get, which meant if you were a guy, you better know how to get past that hard to get, or you weren't even going to get a kiss. And that was the other thing is, making out on the couch was a big deal back then. I imagine that was probably his goal when you're listening to it, when you think about like the Buffalo Gals scene and It's a Wonderful. Maybe we should ban that because after all, Jimmy Stewart took advantage of her when she was naked in the bushes. I mean, is that next? Seriously, I can see the banning of that because it was a comedy bit. People have no sense of humor anymore. I mean, can you imagine, God forbid, your 21-year-old son did what Jimmy Stewart did, and It's a Wonderful Life to somebody's 18-year-old daughter just graduated from high school. She ran, he stepped on the robe, she's naked in the bushes, and he sees it as an opportunity, right? I mean, first of all, he would never be able to be Supreme Court Justice.
One of the greatest things I remember back growing up in the 50s and 60s, I'm dating myself, is a mortal sin, thought, word, and deed. So if you think about a girl and it's a sexual thought, you're committing a mortal sin.
Sure.
Word, if you talk about it, you're committing a mortal sin. And then when you commit the act, that's 3 mortal sins. And this sense of guilt.
So is that like a 3 strikes and you're outlawed, you get life in prison?
Well, then you have to go to confession and confess to a priest to be absolved of these sins. So, if you check out that night, you don't go to hell.
So that all goes back to human conditioning and
convention in the sense of guilt. Now, it's a biological want and need and a desire. It's propagation of the race, and some guys cross the line, and I understand that. But yet, it's something that we're driven by.
Sure.
Now, there has to be protocol, but I mean, it goes to such extremes where women can be victimized. But then today, I'd hate to be a guy dating based on what motivated me. Because you don't know what signals, when the woman gives you a signal, do you open the door? Do I kiss her? Do I dare touch her arm or her hand? When I taught, I remember some of the double standards at the school for these types of sexual harassment or touching a girl or something like that would be adolescents, kid stuff, where you take them into the office and you resolve the issue with the principal and the parent.
Sure.
It's an absurdity today.
Yeah.
And
we're a Sioux society. Everybody wants to.
What do we teach our daughters in this day and age? So I mean, what is appropriate? How do you Because I think now we're raising, I have older kids, I have younger kids.
Yeah.
How do I raise my son to be a gentleman by today's standards? Right?
Yeah.
How do I raise my daughter to be a lady by today's standards?
Yeah.
But in addition to today's standards, still within the bounds of what our morality is in our household. And that's the other thing. Are people trying to peek in on everybody else's morality? Not too much.
Well, you get
It's both ways. Both
and
ways.
they have people that think they can socially engineer utopia or a perfect society because they are the chosen ones. They are the elites. It's like 1984 in Orwell. They want to control every aspect of your life. Now, with my boys, I have 2 boys and 2
No,
girls.
you have the opposite. You have the Puritan thought process, which is almost it's like the equal equivalent, or it's the like. This is a +5. That's a -5.
With my sons, it's like attack the hill. I understand that. I've lived that, But with my daughters, you want to make sure that nobody's going to violate their sanctity.
Right.
And my poor youngest daughter was sort of protected on the one hand because they were so fearful, these guys, to date her because of her brothers, one in particular. Yeah. So she really had to, not like a convent or, not being stowed away, but guys were reluctant to come because of protection of the brothers. But I taught her to have claws and teeth and stand up and think for herself. And I said, don't let the guy, get over on you. I mean, just draw the line. It's up to you. You've got a free will. You make the choice. You know what's right and wrong. And you can't protect your kids from everything and put them in a bubble.
No.
Yeah, I have a 20-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter, and I just actually had this conversation with some of my mom friends a few weeks ago. I mean, it's very difficult nowadays to raise teenagers. And kind of what you said, Ralph, is I raised my son to be respectful and polite and hold doors, and then raising my daughter to not take any crap from. I mean, it's very difficult to find that balance of but also teaching my daughter that you too need to be respectful. It's a two-way street. You can't get into a relationship and treat a guy like total crap and expect that respect back. It doesn't work that way. So it's very challenging to raise. I mean, it's always challenging to raise children, but I just feel especially with social media nowadays too, it makes it even more difficult because nothing ends. Like I had an issue with my daughter, this was a few years ago, and had to, take her phone away, and not even just from the social media aspect, just the whole texting thing is they go to school, they get into an argument, or they have an issue. It never stops. You come home and it continues. So you have access to that social media or that texting. So I had to cut her off from that just to remove her from that situation. So I think social media makes it even more difficult.
Sure.
To really, find that balance.
God, if they would have had social media when I was a teenager,
they didn't.
Probably would have about a year left on my sentence. I'd be getting out next year. I'm exaggerating, but holy cow.
Yeah. Andy Warhol, your 15 minutes of fame, social media.
Oh,
I mean, the way it affects you, thumbs up, thumbs down. And everybody knows your story. It's a soap opera.
Social media can destroy your life in a moment.
Yeah.
But David,
it can be very.
Can social media make your life in a
Nice
moment?
segue.
I know. Can social media make your life in a moment?
It's just like almost anything else in life. You can make it positive. You can look at the negatives. It's easier to focus on the negatives than it is the positives, especially when you're talking about social media. It's harder to get behind somebody and root for them than to scowl at what they're doing and kind of belittle it. But yeah, social media is there's a lot of people building their platforms, and it's not just the young generation; it's all generations.
No, the average age of the YouTube user and the Facebook user is consistently increasing, and to what you said about texting and taking it away and social media making things worse, that is true. But social media is here, absolutely here to stay, whether we like it or not. That's why I started following this guy. That's why we're actually here today, because I started realizing people want good social media video content, and there's actually a vacuum of good content. And that's the thing is when a new technology comes out, in the beginning, you're always going to have more, I would say, bad uses than good uses until people embrace it. The first people to embrace any new technology always seem to be the people that are a little more on the fringes of society.
Well, what you said was so true about the negative versus the positive.
But the positive, it can shape your life.
It can.
Yeah.
But people have the propensity in politics to vote against something and not for it.
Oh, I'm not talking about pop.
Well, I'm talking
yeah,
about everything, and
Yeah.
it includes social media.
Sure.
So you have the propensity, the sin of envy, the deadliest of the 7 deadly sins, Cain and Abel. You thrive on the negative. You like to see the other guy drawn down.
You have to teach your kid, honestly, this is one thing that you have to teach your kids now that you didn't have to teach them as much before. It was important to be popular in the 80s, and it was cool, and it was glorified. You look at shows like Grease. You have to teach your kid to not give a flying fuck what anybody thinks about them
No, it's
now. And keep putting it out there, keep putting it out there, keep putting it out there. Oh, this is not FCC compliant. We're on the internet.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
We're on social media.
Baby, it's
We're on
cold
social-
outside.
Right.
You can't play that.
It is really fucking cold outside. You have got to teach your kids that early on to keep putting themselves out there and don't worry about the no's, and eventually they'll collect the yeses. And once the no's realize they have zero effect on you, the trolls, they tend to go away after a while. Now, we're going to talk about a local kid, and this kid's become a phenom, and one of the reasons of the way I became acquainted with you is through your relationship with Tristan Jazz. And if you don't know who he is, he's become somewhat of a local legend because the whole myth that you kids keep telling you, or you think it's a myth that I'm going to be a YouTuber for a living, actually came true for him. And I coached this kid. I was an assistant coach on the Pee Wee Steelers for Boys and Girls Club when he was playing with my sons. Shout out to John Lynn. I know you're out there. I see you could have been here today too. John Lynn was Tristan's coach. I was an assistant coach on that team. My boys were playing. And I remember this hit he put on another kid that he hit that kid so hard that his grandma popped up in her grave. I mean, it was boom, you heard it from across the field, and I was like, holy shit. I mean, just laid this kid out. I felt bad for the kid, but I had respect for that hit. It was unbelievable. And he played like that week after week after week. And it was the Tristan and Frankie show. There's another kid on that same team, Frank Garcia. And the two of them probably could have played with tackle dummies for the rest of the line and won every game. And I thought, man, this kid is going to be a football player. So I thought, this kid's going to be in the freaking NFL. Freak of nature. And I remember telling his dad, because his dad, Jeff, helped coach too. We all got to be good friends. It was a great time. And I said, man, your kid should wrestle. I mean, because my kid's wrestle. No, he wants to play basketball. I'm like, short little white kid, basketball, right? I mean, come on. Well, he's sprouted. Yeah. His playing ability sprouted. He was looked at by a lot of schools and chose not to. Because of the whole NCAA ban on monetizing your YouTube channel and capitalizing on the fact you're a college athlete. And he didn't want to give up the income. Am I right?
Yeah.
So
the only people that can't monetize in college are athletes. Musicians can monetize YouTube. Artists can monetize YouTube. Athletes
faculty can monetize.
Yeah, it's
a coach can monetize. So I can't believe there isn't a big antitrust class action lawsuit against the NCAA yet that's prevailing, because what they're doing to these athletes is complete bullshit. Now we have a kid who, honestly, I think he should be in college. Yeah. But if you have to pick between the two, it's very difficult, because next year as a freshman he could break his leg and not have the income that he's getting now, because his status will just evaporate. So I completely understand the decision. But my point is that he should be able to go to school. He earned that reputation. He created the views. He's done it. Now, how does this happen, right? In a minute, you don't know what goes viral, what doesn't. This kid went viral by playing basketball with one of his teachers. And you heard the movie The Sham God? Watch this. I'm going to have you guys check this out. And I want you to see the instant that this kid became famous, because I think it is just one of the coolest things ever. So I got this thing. Let me make sure I get share it out right. So that's the moment that he went from just another kid making videos to a sensation. There's a YouTube version of it as well. What happened after that?
Yeah, so that happened. He posted it on his Instagram, and then I think the next morning he woke up and everybody was in his messages, his direct messages. ESPN, Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, everybody asking for permission to use their use that video on their platforms. I think that was SB Nation was what we were looking at. So everybody was trying to grab that. And then from there, it was really on him to start to build off that platform. Had it just been that one video, and then he kind of sit back, he wouldn't be where he is today. He used that to capitalize, and actually his little brother Brennan, who is also another brilliant kid, was the one that kind of said, "Hey, let's push this YouTube. Let's push this YouTube. You have the platform. People are looking at what you're doing now. Let's build the YouTube." And then he started to build the YouTube, and it's just taken off so fast. I don't know if it's ever happened this fast for any of these YouTubers. His rise has been unprecedented.
In 18 months, he has went from nobody knew who he was
to texting Drake. That's a cultural icon, and be friends with people like that. We were out in LA for 26 days, and we collabed with people, met with people, and it was you can definitely tell people are trying to get his attention now, because they can run ads on YouTube. So that's how they make their money, is they make their money off AdSense, and how many views you have, it increases how much you make. So I think he's at 330,000 subscribers right now, which isn't a lot, but he's growing at a faster rate than anybody else. If you look at his Instagram views per likes is also one of the highest, which goes back to what we were talking about before, is it's hard to focus on the positive. So what you're seeing is people are focusing on his positive, because not only is he getting the million views per Instagram post, but he's also getting a couple 100,000 likes, which you don't see that often.
Wow.
And he's a great kid. He's
how old is he?
He's 18. He'll be 19.
Wow.
He'll be 19 Sunday.
And if he plays his cards right, he can set himself up for the rest of his life. And that's the thing. At 18, do you have the discipline to do that? But there was a little luck involved. There's always luck involved. But what happened afterwards was an intense work ethic.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that people don't get about social media and these kids that are making it. The difference between the people that are making it and the people that aren't making it is work ethic, just like anything else. And I think that a lot of people, even my age, 40s, 50s, and on, who haven't really spent a lot of time and don't get it, really don't get it.
All right.
Generation X on up.
I was a Downey Thomas. We talked about that the last time I was here. And then the other day on the news, they talked about the top earners on YouTube. There's some kid, he's 12 years old. He's pulling out $22 million, the top earner.
Yeah.
$22 million.
Yes.
Reviewing toys.
Reviewing toys.
Yeah.
This is real. And there are a lot of people now, we're hearing about the top 2-3%.
Yeah.
There are legions of people making a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year income, making the same money that you or I would probably make at your average job.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they are treating their production as their job. So they do have a job, and they're putting probably the same amount of time into it, and they're working, and they're getting a paycheck for that work, but that work is the production of content. Now, there's a lot of national podcasts that are talking about this, but I think that, we're in the Midwest, and we're in this little bubble where it takes us a little longer to see what's going on, which I always tell people is fantastic, because we have a crystal ball if we just look outside our own damn bubble. And so many times that doesn't happen. But when I reach outside our bubble, and this last year has been a epiphany for me. I had this waking experience when I switched companies in my real estate profession and started collaborating. You talked about collaborating and meeting with people in other markets. And it got introduced to ideas that then led me to finding people outside the real estate industry, which led me to this guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a very popular guy, but he's famous. I didn't even know who he was 6 months ago. That's how it is right now. You can be famous and there's people that have never heard of you. That wasn't this in the 1950s. If you're famous for everybody. Right? If you're Elvis Presley, everybody knew who you were.
Right.
Our society is way more fragmented, and the earth is flat because of social media. So you can be famous to 1 million people and nobody else has heard of you and making a great living on it. And that's really what this is he's famous, but we're thinking of famous like old Hollywood controls who's famous. That's not the case anymore. What YouTube has done is they've created, and most people are watching YouTube on this right here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
they're watching it on their television set. All right, they're not on computers anymore. This guy talks about this book, and I read this book, and if you haven't read it, and I know I'm promoting somebody else's thing here, and I'm not getting paid for it, that's not what it is. This book here really changed my thinking. If you're producing, by 2020, 80% of all content being produced on the internet or being consumed on the internet is going to be video. Because people are using their phones and using their TVs. They don't want a picture and words anymore. They want instant gratification. They want the information. And the endorphin rush of watching a video is different than reading. And so it's going that way. And if you can consistently produce good content, you can make a living. You can take little microcosms of society where you become an influencer in that microcosm. And people are paying $1,000 for an average level influencer in Chicago to like hold the T-shirt up for their restaurant. I mean, little things like that. Yeah. So that's what was going on with Tristan. And you talk about collabs, which is short for collaborations, and that is when somebody who is immensely popular partners up with somebody who's not popular yet, but they like them, or somebody who is immensely popular maybe in a different genre. Or maybe somebody immensely popular in the same genre, but they want to borrow from each other's audiences. And they do these projects and cross-promote each other's projects on the internet so that it actually benefits the both of them. But if one is bigger than the other, then normally the other one is paying a fee for that. But then that's one layer. That's the layer of influencers climbing the influencer ladder with other influencers. But then there's brand influencing. And what brand influencing is when Pepsi says, hey, dude, hold a Pepsi can on my show. Or on your show, and we'll pay you, $500 because you have an audience of 6,000 people. They're starting to calculate. These big brands are starting to calculate what the value of influencer is, and influencer marketing is growing at a phenomenal pace to the point that this guy right here had a little mom and pop wine shop reaching $80 million a year business. I actually didn't know who the guy was, and then we started a production company or a media company training brands on how to work with influencers and influencers how to work with brands. And I thought that was amazing. So I have this food show that I do, 262 Eats. It's local. And I did a short collab project with Tristan when he was in town. So we're going to look at that, and we're going to talk about that when it's done. And tell us what you think. Yeah, you ready?
We're starting?
You right? You want to get while it's hot, right?
All right, 25.
25 minutes. All right.
This is actually really spicy, bro.
Oh, I believe it.
I don't even know how to eat this. It's spicy.
Yeah,
It's really spicy. I'm a really white person, and everything is so spicy to me. This is bad. Good.
So, I mean, he's got a lot of personality. He does, and he's got a personality in this, like, he kind of reminds me of Owen Wilson, but, like, at 18. Where he's got that.
He's got good.
Yeah, and then he's got some mad skills on the basketball court, too. When I asked him, could I score even one basket against you if you ate the whole thing, and I didn't, he said, nope. He lied. First of all, I suck at basketball. That's why I wrestled. But even if I was, he's an animal.
Yeah, he's top level.
And I wish we would see him compete. Mm-hmm. That's that's the only thing is I think that all that he's doing with his video production and all that is great. It's cool, and I'd love to see that somebody just saw an opening and just punched through it and got after it.
He's going on to school, right?
No.
Not at all? Not academically or anything? Well, that's a shame.
Yeah, that seems to be the divide. So there's the divide between the people that want him to go to school.
Sure.
And then I'm kind of on the other side of that. I don't think school's in his best interest at this point. Because of, like we talked about, if he does get injured, that's going to hurt his platform.
Oh, sure.
He can't keep the money coming in from YouTube if he goes to college.
Right.
Why? I guess I'm confused.
The NCAA will not.
What if he goes into college and doesn't play? What if he goes to college to get an education and continues to do what he's doing?
He could do that.
With YouTube?
Or he could start to set up his own education courses on how to manage your social media.
Is college overvalued right now though?
Yeah.
Amateur athletes, Jim Thorpe.
I think overall, and this is being talked about too, that the student loan crisis is going to be the next financial meltdown,
Right.
and the experts are talking about it. And I think that you know what? I think this bullshit that we're telling our kids, you all have to go to college.
Oh,
you know, my wife teaches at a school where that they're trying to make kids college ready who have no desire, and they're skipping the fact that there's this whole middle ground of be a good person, learn how to be self-sufficient, know how to balance your bank account in this day and age, get a trade. You know, they're not talking about that anymore.
Is the millions of dollars that these athletes bring into the colleges, especially, as you know, Division I. And the college is making out, Saban's making $7 million a year, but these athletes that are bringing the dough in get nothing. That is hypocrisy.
And it's not really nothing, you know, it's they're dealing with the highest levels of stress that we've ever seen. So not only the highest levels of stress on the court, but the highest levels of stress from having social media, which we're just realizing now. And the colleges, the institutions are not finding ways to take care of this. You might be lucky to find a sports psychologist on some of these college teams. They don't have somebody to talk to. They don't have nutritionists. Most of them, a lot of them are just kind of weaning. And these athletes you can see it, the stress is building on them. And that's kind of.
Yeah, they're not working in the best interest of the athletes. They're running a for-profit nonprofit, and that means that they want to keep their expenses as low as possible. Yeah. So after paying these kids nothing, okay, which I think is still okay. It's you're still an amateur, you're a student athlete. They're paying them nothing. I get that, but they're gaming every system out there. Oh, Title IX gets gamed. They cut boys sports as opposed to adding women's sports. All right. This system gets gamed. They don't pay them, and they don't even allow them to make money on their own. You know, the scope of things you're allowed to do to make a living or make money as a student athlete are very narrow. Now, I don't agree with paying athletes, but you know what? If an athlete can get an endorsement on his own, as long as you're not wearing, hey, you know what? If you put on University of Wisconsin, now you're wearing licensed gear, we can't have that. But you're Tristan Jazz, and you're the person who was already a person before you went to Wisconsin, will continue to be a person afterwards who has a personality and talent. And you can't use that personality and talent to have people pay you for their influence.
All right.
It's a load of crap. It's
well, Jordan Spieth as an amateur couldn't cash in.
Right.
How many college athletes break their leg, tear something, 2 years in, never make it, and that's the truth. They gave up their opportunity to do anything else in life because they got sold this little bullshit by the NCAA that this is the farm system to the pros. They gave them nothing. They really didn't educate them because they cheated their way through education for the students so that the program can win. And now 2 years later, the kid is dumb, injured, and bankrupt. And I don't mean that the kid is dumb because it's by all his own design. He's been sold a line of bullshit. And nobody's talking about it. And I think it's time. And Tristan has opened up, and he's part of a bigger discussion, I think, on that subject. And that's because as a parent, you're like, I want you to go to school, damn it, because that's what we've been talking about.
And that's one of the fallacies that we teach kids, that how many Trey Wayneses and Melvin Gordons or Mickey Van Exels you're going to get in Kenosha. Now, it's not going to be your automatic ticket to stardom and money. And the academics, and this is where I think that or it doesn't have to be college. I mean, there's vocational and technical and other types of things that kids could really cash in on. It's a big injustice. And $1.5 trillion in outstanding loans for college students because they're trying to encourage kids to go to college.
And what's happened, the more student loans are available, what's happening with the price of tuitions? It's going up. And it's not because it's costing the colleges more. No. It's because their profit margins are rising because they're selling a brand. No. And, the brand Michigan, the brand Ohio State, people are getting a brand name education for the same reason they drive a brand name car. No. And they're not getting a better quality education proportionately to the difference they're paying. Right. It might be, you might get a better education at Michigan than you get at UW Parkside, but you're not getting 15 times the education.
And you might not.
But you might not, it's the individual.
And I'm saying you may.
Depends on the program.
Yeah,
I'm saying you may.
At the University of Parkside, I know I'm gonna have the professor in my class with the lecture and teaching.
Yes.
And I might
Not
have
a
a
student.
PA at a big university where I'm not really getting the bang for my buck. They have a
Right.
reputation.
Sure.
And Michigan's a great school academically, the best in the Big Ten. But yet, sometimes at a smaller school like Parkside or Carthage, I think the quality of the or Gateway, the quality of education is very good. We've been blessed
Right.
living in a town with these three.
The only thing you're getting at a bigger college
Oh,
than a
yeah.
smaller college, I think, is you're part of a different country club.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
Well, it opens doors for you.
it's networking. Yeah. It's
career-wise, yeah.
yeah.
And not every student or not every kid does well in those larger
No.
universities. Some people, I mean, I can speak from experiences. I went to a parochial school my entire life, so the thought of going to a huge university just scared the crap out of me. So I stayed local, and my classes were small. And I mean, my son goes to Parkside, and
Good
he
school.
wants to be a doctor, and I think it's like Parkside has about a 95%
Yeah, good pre-med.
acceptance
Yeah.
rate into medical school.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
he's in a good place and
Sure.
saving a lot of money. Driving me crazy, but he's saving a lot of money.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's important.
The quality is there. They're, you know, they keep talking about the student loan crisis and all these poor kids. You know, here's the other thing. Enlistments in the military is at
Well, they're having a hard time.
a low.
Yeah.
You go to college for free when you're done. No one talks about
Well, I
when they start talking about these poor students, they don't have a chance. Yes, you do. You don't have to necessarily go straight to college.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't. And I think that that's being undervalued right now as well
Oh,
as
absolutely.
an option.
Yeah.
And there's just the trades are undervalued as an option.
Absolutely.
There are so many other career paths or life paths that provide you a lifetime of stability and abundance if you're willing to accept that instead of always chasing the myth of more. I have to go to the better school, I have to drive the better car, I have to have the better watch.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
crap.
For the 4 years I invested in the Marine Corps in 2 bullet holes, I got my undergraduate, I got my graduate degree, I got a subsidized house with the GI loan.
Yeah.
I got the free medical care, and I mean, there's just such numerous benefits that have been reaped upon me through that 4-year investment of my life.
Well, I think that we're going to see a change in the culture. I think there's going to be a shift away from it being everything to everybody.
Yeah.
And I hope the education system catches up. They have a hard time catching up with the times
Yeah.
because we're not serving our kids right
No, we're not.
by telling all of them that that's your only option in life.
No.
So here's what happens. You don't know all that middle ground is there, and you feel like you can't reach that. It's unattainable. And so you just accept your lot in life, that your life is just going to suck. And that's got to change. There's got to be a lot more focus on look at all these other spots
Oh, right.
in society that you can fit in, live a productive life, and be happy
And this Gateway,
with dignity.
I can't say enough about it now with this Foxconn and the programs they're setting up to help kids have a gainful employment. X-ray tech, my daughter started through the Gateway program taking X-rays. Now she's got her master's in nursing from Marquette. But that Gateway gave her the opportunity for an entry level to get the experience in the medical field that spurred her on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about Gateway Technical College.
And that's
Great.
where people are lacking is the experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Schooling is sometimes there,
Oh, sure.
and the degrees and what goes next to your name is there,
Yeah.
but sometimes the experience isn't there.
Right.
You need that experience.
Well, you run
Absolutely.
into this too. Like, I mean, I've been in positions where I've had to hire people for positions, and there's, you know, companies make this requirement that you have to have a degree, or even promoting within. You could have people that have been working for a company for 20 years that never went to college. They're going to pass them over because they don't have a degree and hire someone fresh out of college. I always push back on them. Like, I want the person that has the experience.
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
is this
Hard knocks,
person
yeah.
hiring an engineer right out of college to throw them into this huge project? You're going to fail.
Sure.
I want that person that's been working with the company and understands that. Granted, they're
Oh,
an
sure.
engineer without a degree,
Yeah.
but they're going to be more valuable to that position and that project than the,
Oh,
the
sure.
kid right out of school.
Absolutely.
So companies are setting that precedent, which is not always the best approach either.
It's not the best interest of the company even.
No.
And I think a hiring manager is really, you know, when I'm looking at a hiring choice, even in my company, that's not I'm not looking for the pedigree anymore. You know, I'm looking for what's underneath that because these pedigrees are all they're all fake. And so the hiring process takes longer. But show me somebody who's just got balls and ambition. And you can call it whatever you want for women, same thing. I'm not, show me someone with guts and ambition. And I'll take that any day over a better pedigree on a piece of paper. Well, I think we are probably just about out of time. So many more subjects we can hit on, but we're going to have a lot more weeks. And I tell you what, this has been fun. I can't wait to do this again next week. And I hope that you guys all tune in next week, because we're going to get real. Shit's going to get real with Ralph every single week. Right here on our YouTube channel. If you're watching this somewhere else, follow the link below. Get to our YouTube channel. Make sure that you're liking us on whatever platform you see us on. Make sure you're subscribing to our channel if you came to us somewhere else. And please comment. Tell us how you feel. We're going to have experts in here from all different areas. And we want your feedback. We want to know, what do you want to know about the area that you live in? What do you want to know about the country you live in? What do you want to know about what's going on in today's day and age, that we can kind of dive in and have a discussion? Let's do this every week. Thank you for tuning in to Get Real with Ralph.